So yeah, Hawthorn really is bursting out in a kind of orgasmic celebration of spring. And I put that in there not just gratuitously, but it's because, now, I can't remember exactly where I read it. I think it was Richard Maybe's Flora Britannica, but yeah, I'm sure if you kind of Googled that or searched or looked in the book, you'd find that. But he talks about hawthorn being associated with, yeah, human intercourse and the kind of aromas and the kind of smells associated with that. And what he talks about, I think, what is the chemical? Triethylamine, which is said to be in like human semen or a very closely related compound, and vaginal secretions as well. So kind of when we think of kind of hawthorn in that way, in that kind of, yeah, those erotic overtones, sensual overtones connected with them, it's really not surprising. I mean, it's the 1st of May today, and I think of Beltane and May Day celebrations as well, that, you know, a lot of these go back to ancient times, and it is a celebration of spring and libidinousness and licentiousness and fecundity and sex. So yeah, plants really are you know, a gateway in some ways. Obviously we have many aphrodisiac plants, but hawthorn is associated with Beltane and this kind of time of kind of spring joy and revelry. And kind of interesting as well, like kind of which book was it that he wrote? He's written some wonderful books, Stephen Booner, and I think it was The Secret Teachings of Plants. But he has in that book, yeah, I mean, it's basic plant biology, like flower and flower biochemistry. And yeah, he has like lovely images of like the structure of like the female reproductive system, and you know the plant reproductive system as well, and shows, you know, how very similar they are, which is kind of not surprising really, given that, yeah, these are species that have evolved before us, and you know, some of the biochemical mechanisms and the biology is going to be mirrored in our own biology and biochemistry. Remember, no, did I just dream this? I'm sure I didn't, but I also think I read an article on like a mushroom that has a kind of scent or pheromone that can actually induce orgasms in some people. Can't remember whether it was men or women, but there we are. So hawthorn, beautiful plant, wonderful plant. I use it a lot. So we're going to gather some today, and then, yeah, I'll show you how to do that, and then we're going to go back to my place and make a couple of recipes. So let's gather some. So how to pick hawthorn? It's kind of obvious really, common sense. Or I guess one of those things that just become obvious when you're kind of doing it really. Because yeah, you kind of might just think you could just grab a bit from the top and kind of pull it, but kind of that happens, you see? Get a lot of the stalk and even like the woody bits. So with every little cluster I pick, I kind of pinch the flowers together just like that, and make sure there's no leaves there, and draw all the flowers together, just kind of like that, and just pick it. So there we go. There's the flowers. Not much stem, and I'll just keep going along. But the other thing that I'm doing is I'm really looking for sprigs. You see that? That have, it's too close, like very pink kind of stamens. So when most of them like that, they've just opened, so they are absolutely bursting with flavour. Later on, when they're not showing that kind of pink colour, and you shake the bush and the petals fall down a lot more, you can still use them. Kind of use their, like at that point they're kind of like the confetti of the botanical world. Yeah, you could sprinkle them on salads and things, but if you really want to make syrups and wines and infusions, teas, go for these ones that are just opened with really pink colourful stamens. And also, yeah, an indication that they've just opened, you're going to have lots of other ones dotted around in the sprig like this here, which still haven't quite fully opened. Well, they haven't at all. They're just in bud there. Just realised that I forgot to bring a bag, but fortunately, if you wear a hat as often as I do, and luckily I wore my scarf today because it's quite windy, that you're never bagless, so that's okay. Actually, a scarf is pretty good because whenever I pick any flowers, I kind of like to spread them out a little bit and give a chance for any insects in there, particularly like small ones that you kind of can't see, to just have a chance to escape. I'm also just going to look through and pick out any leaves that I might have missed. Not that it really matters that much, but the more that it's just flower, the better the flavour of any syrup or infusion tea. Actually, that's pretty good. Just before we go from here, there's one thing I'll mention which is kind of, I think is really important. It's important to me anyway, particularly of talking about the bees gathering honey. I mean, that was quite a lot of blossom, right? So, God, what about the bees? Like, yeah, where are they going to get their nectar from, taking all that blossom? Well, a general principle, whatever I'm foraging, is I really want it to be such that when I've finished my forage, I look back and it's as if I haven't been there. So I've just been foraging right here in this hedgerow, so let's have a look at what it looks like now. Believe me, it ain't denuded. So yeah, looks pretty much like I haven't been here. It's almost tempting to stay and get some more, but yeah, I've got what I need. But the wind is picking up, so let's be off. I'm kind of really pleased actually, because I wanted to get this before the rain came, which this kind of wind is implying is on the cards for today. And I had an idea, and kind of ideas don't always kind of pan out in terms of thinking about the ingredients in advance, but I fancied having soup for lunch involving like 3 ingredients. Like, one is using a plant that for years, when I found out that it grew far more commonly than I thought, I was like really kind of looking out for it, but I just couldn't find it anywhere. And yeah, but anyway, let's go and look at it and I'll kind of tell you what it is. I keep looking in the wrong, it's strange when you're not talking to someone in front of you. I keep looking in, keep looking there, like where are you? Where? Anyway, let's go and see if we can find this plant. It's a good one, I use it a lot. And I expect it's growing right near you. So here it is, our main wild soup ingredient. Yeah, not the Alexander's, but the one behind it, which, I don't know, perhaps you can understand why I just kind of walked past it for years without kind of realising it was the very plant I'd been looking for, kind of, yeah, literally right at the end of my nose and somewhere I go very often. What I really want to see, well, I kind of want to see and I don't want to see, is the flower, because that's when it really grabbed my attention. And yeah, I kind of saw this flower and I stopped kind of dead still and just laughed to myself incredulously, really, that this plant that I walk past so often and I just hadn't noticed. And, you know, I often say to people that foraging is about noticing, you know, if it's about anything. And you kind of think that because I give that advice and, you know, I value it, that I follow it. But, you know, I can be just as unobservant as kind of, yeah, the average person. But anyway, I don't want it to be in flower just because I want to use the leaves for the soup as the main ingredient, and they're much better before the plant comes into flower. But let's just see if we can find one, just so you can see. Oh, go through this thicket here. Look around. I mean, it tends to come in flower in May, but look. No. Oh! Huh. That's a surprise. I didn't expect to find a flower down in a really shady area. But, right, this, if you don't know the plant, but you grow vegetables, and particularly if you grow potatoes, you'll probably recognise flowers are quite similar. You see? don't know if that's focusing. So it does look like many members, well, obviously because this is the family it's in, of the nightshade family. So this is, well, it is actually goji, the goji plant, or Lycium barbarum, also known as Duke of Argyll's tea plant. There's kind of an interesting story there, is that I think it was the third Duke of Argyll up in Scotland that he, back in like 1700 sometime, I think it was like 1730, I don't think he went out to kind of get the plant. I think he had it sent to him, but what he thought he was getting sent, or whether he went and got it, I think it was sent, was the tea plant, the Camellia, whatever it is, Camellia sinensis, is it? And perhaps like me, actually, it was only when it burst into flower that he probably also kind of chuckled with incredulousness or irritation or just humour, absurdity of the situation. He realised it wasn't the classic traditional tea plant, but that it was something else. Yeah, and the something else is one that the Chinese have used for a very long time, both medicinally and for food. So there's two varieties that we get goji from. One is Lycium barbarum, and the other one is Lycium chinesium, I think it is. But they can both be used in the way that I'm going to use it, in the same way. And what I'm after is just either the lovely kind of sprigs at the end there, like that, or what I like to find also is like really, I'll show you in a minute, is like kind of rapidly growing new shoots that just have like lots of leaves coming off it, and you can kind of strip them off. So again, I'm bagless. I kind of dumped off all my hawthorn out of this into my bicycle pannier, so scarf bag round 2. Okay, I'm just going to pick enough to make 4 portions of soup. So that was the kind of clustered sprigs of new leaves that grow on the existing branch, because this is a perennial, and then you get the kind of new shoots where they just strip off really easily. So that's it. Just a couple of more ingredients to get, and we knock up a nice soup. It won't be done in the kind of traditional way, because generally like the Chinese would cook that more in a kind of broth type clear soup. I'm going to combine it with, well, hopefully nettles and sorrel, and do a puree soup. So let's see how that goes. Find the other ingredients first. So the second ingredient for this soup is this lovely plant here, really gorgeous, healthy colony of it here. And it's one of the woodsorrels. Now this is, I think it's an introduced kind of ornamental variety, pink woodsorrel. Yeah, well, and when I say sorrel, it's in the oxalis family, not the rumex family like the docks and the common sorrel. So this one, Rumex articulata, I think. And come and have a look at it. It's just growing here. Kind of just at the bottom of this kind of hedgerow here, and probably more as a garden escape. So it's usually going to be like the edge of kind of urban areas or kind of alleyways. This is kind of typical places where I find it, and it's one of those ones that also develop a bit of, I think it's a kind of a fungal infection. Kind of, it looks like spots, like kind of orange, kind of dusty spots on the underside of the leaves, particularly as like the season progresses. Sometimes it can be covered in that, but you can't see that on the top. It just be on the underside of the leaves. So in fact, look, there's one that is covered in it. You'd see that. So kind of avoid those ones, but otherwise just going to get some. And the stalks are absolutely delicious, like compared to your kind of regular wood sorrel in the woods, that actually is in the woods with a really thin stalk. The stalk of pink sorrel is really thick and succulent and juicy. Wow, it's like the sharpest of sharp apple skins, almost lemon-like. So I'll get a few handfuls of that. And some flowers that hopefully they're open up, because I'd like to use those to garnish the soup. But it's kind of quite early in the morning, so the sun hasn't really woken the flowers up just yet. I'm probably going to get about 4 times that amount. But off to find the last ingredient, which I saw some just over there on a compost heap. I like compost heaps. Let's go and have a look. I managed to forage myself a bag, which is great. So got quite a few of the pink wood sorrel, some flowers. Picked up a handful of goosegrass on the way. I can see some on this compost heap as well. Nice compost heap there. And I'll get some more of that. But what I really came for is just kind of a handful of nettles. So it's not really a nettle soup as such, as that being the main ingredient. But I'm going to put some nettles in there. This is like for 4 people, so I'm going to pick, well, if it was like mainly like a nettle soup I was making, I'd pick about, I don't know, 10 to 15 tops of nettles per portion. But because this is a mixture of things, I'm probably just going to pick about, I don't know, 5 per portion. Once is the answer. If your question was, did you get stung? Yeah, just once though. But that was just pure good luck. There we are. A bit more cleavers. And that's it, we've got everything we need. So I'm going to do a couple of things with these flowers. The thing I kind of want to do most, because I haven't done it before, is make a hawthorn blossom fizz. Now, I've done this with many other things, and traditionally, like, people do it with elderflower. And yeah, you just basically put the flowers in a bottle with some water and some sugar and put it in a warm place for anything from a day to a couple of weeks, really. It kind of depends on kind of how warm it is and how much sugar you've got and how much is it kind of yeast or lactobacillus bacteria, whatever it is that is kind of fermenting the sugars in the water. But I do find that if you leave it for at least a week, that you get more of the lovely hawthorn flavour. Well, I haven't done hawthorn before, but I've used other flowers, but more of the flower, lovely aromatics coming out. So the last time I did this with any flower, it was seriously explosive. And yeah, I mean, I call myself a wild food experimentalist because sometimes not only do I use conventional ingredients, but in ways that perhaps they haven't been used in the past, but also to explore using ingredients that really don't have a tradition of use at all. I mean, that is quite rare for me, I must say, but that's when I'm on the kind of very edge of my, you know, in my full experimentalist mode. So the last flower I did was one that comes out a bit later than this, which is why I had to wait all the way for the season to come round so I could experiment in the same way with these. Anyway, it was sweet chestnut blossom, which, my goodness, if anything smells funky, spunky, spermy, my goodness, it's sweet chestnut blossom. So I have to stress there is no tradition of using this, but from the research I did, I couldn't find any indication to suggest that they couldn't be used in this way, sweet chestnut blossom. But I'm at my mother's now, which is great, because if I remember rightly, I put about 300 champagne bottles in the cellar about 10 years ago. So I'm hoping they're still there, because when I was making a whole load of experimental wild fizzes last year, including the sweet chestnut blossom, I used plastic bottles, and my goodness, wow, was that explosive. So I'm not saying that this will not happen with the I'm not saying that this won't happen with the champagne bottles, that it will be explosive, but certainly there won't be any danger of the bottle itself exploding, which I thought would potentially happen with the plastic ones I use. So have a look at this. This is the result of fermenting sweet chestnut blossom in a plastic bottle. I have a look while I go down in the cellar with this light and see if I can find some champagne bottles. Have a look at this clip. I've been experimenting with wild fizzes, so basically different flowers put into these bottles with some water and some lemon juice and some sugar. Let's see if it fizzes. Wait. Whoa! Woo! But there's your answer. This is sweet chestnut blossom. Ah! There we go. I think that's fizzy enough. Wow. Not much left, but it's delicious. Cheers. You see, pretty explosive, eh? But it was fun. I must say, I really enjoyed that, and absolutely delicious. So here, utter chaos, I must say, and devastation of. I mean, they're not here now, but a few years ago, I picked literally. Well, I gathered from fallen windfalls, thousands of walnuts, and a lot of them I shelled, dried and vacuum sealed, but some also, and they were stored here, and others I just had in sacks. You can see like the sacks of things that have just completely been turned into dust, and the reason being is that rats ate all of them. In fact, you know, I'm always cursing these rats, but actually I think they've done me a favour, because I didn't expect to find a champagne bottle this easily, but because they've eaten half the box, I think I've spotted them. There we are. Well, look, help if I just read the label. Champagne. Look, there we are. But that's what drew my attention first. Is champagne bottles there. Look. Great. And cages, but what about corks? I wonder if they actually in the bottle, in the box with the bottle. Let's have a look. No, but anyway, great, got some bottles. So I've given those a bit of a rinse, although they're contained inside the box, so probably wasn't necessary. So I'm going to put a little bit of sugar in there, just the right amount, not too much. Not too little. And, well, I'm wondering if I can just maybe get these down with this chopstick. And there's all sorts of plants that you could do this with. So when I think of flowers, I've done this successfully with lime blossom and honeysuckle. What else have I used? Lilac, actually. I've used lilac. That was kind of nice. Oh, I don't want to really bash it like that. I want to go a bit slower. Heather was very nice. Dandelion, it's good. Yarrow was nice. What else was particularly good that I can remember? I've gone absolutely blank now that I'm trying to remember the flowers that I have used. So, obviously fragrant flowers, well, spring to mind as being a kind of category of things to use, but of course, not just flowers, you could use mint leaves. So, of course, mint flowers, yeah, but mint leaves, or, oh yeah, one that, in fact, probably one of my favourite last year was mugwort. So that was a mixture of mugwort leaves and flowers. So yeah, of course, you can combine the two. So I really want to fill this bottle. I mean, the more I can get in there, the better, more intense, obviously, the flavour. And I guess when it comes to opening it, even if it is kind of explosive, I'll kind of pour it out through a sieve so I don't have all the flowers in there. Oh, that's a better way. Just get out, I think, just get a big handful. I find whatever kind of process you're doing, whether it's with wild food, whether it's kind of picking plants or, you know, working on whatever the next stage is, you soon find the kind of your best working kind of practice. Not that we have to be super efficient about everything, but sometimes it is kind of nice. I think two more big handfuls in there. Way. And actually, I would imagine that, well, we'll see, when I come to put the water in there, I would imagine that just it will start excluding like the air that's kind of trapped in the flowers, and it will create space to add some more flowers, so even more flavour. Let's go and put some water in this one. Done that. Stick the cork in there. Put on one of these metal cages. Put it in a warm place for, I reckon, a week at least. Slight refinement on that in the next one because I didn't put any water in there first and then I put the flowers in the water. It's kind of hard to dissolve the sugar. So I put some water in this one. This one's kind of obvious, really. Should have thought this beforehand, but I didn't. So put the sugar. Some sugar, dissolve all that first. Then I'll start putting the flowers in. Well, they're both done, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with the rest. I must say, just having them in this enclosed environment is incredible. I mean, almost getting intoxicated by the aroma. Gosh. So with the rest of them, I'm going to make a syrup. And I do this because when I'm running courses, I do have quite a lot of vegans, and sometimes the recipes I use involve honey. And for me, this makes as a really thick sugar syrup. It's like the ultimate kind of vegan honey substitute. When I think that this time of the year, the bees are kind of buzzing around busily, collecting all that nectar and pollen, and just concentrating like the flavours and the aromas of this into their honey. It's no wonder that when you do make a sweet concentrated syrup out of this, it is very reminiscent of a fragrant spring honey. So what I would normally do is either vacuum seal this in a bag with some water and sugar, or in jars, kilner jars, and put it in the oven, basically to trap all the aromatics. But I don't have any of my kind of things that I normally have where I am, so I'm just going to get it and going to put in here. Just boiled this. It's boiling nicely. You can't see there's not much water in there. I've only got, I'd say, about 2 pints of water. So I take that off the boil, and well, let's see. Can't really do this with this camera here. So, but I'll try. Here we are. So I'll tip that in there. No, it's not going to work. Really just kind of want to get this in there as quickly as possible. There we are. Give it a stir. Get the lid back on. I'm just going to bring it up to temperature again, literally for about 30 seconds, and then kind of leave it for until it's got cold, really. And yeah, strain it, add the sugar to it's like super saturated. Then I will bottle it or jar it and then sterilize it, and it'll be done. I don't know, I'm doing that thing where I don't know where to look again. Anyway, so that's Hawthorn blossom syrup and Hawthorn blossom fizz. Fingers crossed they both turn out well. I think they will. Onto the soup. I just realised I need this pan for the soup. So this is actually cooled down now. So I'm just going to strain it. Kind of where I usually live, I'm kind of realising that I'm absolutely spoiled in terms of the kitchen there and all the equipment. Got everything I need. Ladles, strainers. I'm having to improvise a bit here. My strainer is a merino wool thermal top. Clean, I should add. Get all that lovely flavour out of the blossom. That. It's almost kind of like a really rich honey colour. not a kind of clear honey, but the add a load of sugar. That's it. Dissolve all that. Finish that later. Just gonna fry some onions and onions and garlic. Actually, a bit of leek as well. I've cooked that a little bit, so now just going to add a bit of stock, some boiling water, a bit of vegetable stock, not too much. Pepper, bit of salt. Let's grab our greens. There we are. So we've got the nettles, the sorrel, goji leaves, cleavers, just one final thing I picked up, and that's some mallow, just as a thickening agent really. Kind of instead of adding potato, or you could add some potato if you wanted it thicker, but mallow's really great for thickening. Lid on, and I'll just kind of wait about 5 minutes actually. I don't want to overcook the greens. I kind of like to just cook them as quickly as possible. So essentially just let them wilt down and then cook for another couple of minutes. That's it. That's literally just been 2 minutes. All down. That's kind of cooked down nicely. Just going to blend it. It really is delicious. The sorrel just gives it such a lovely kind of tangy flavour. The only thing I'd say about using sorrel is you're going to get a soup that's not a kind of vibrant green, because it kind of has, it kind of has kind of more brown overtones, but it's you know, it's still absolutely great. So that's version 1. Do you know, that's so good. I'm tempted, very tempted. In fact, sense would dictate actually that I leave it at this point. But since my housemate made, do you know what? I'm going to put a portion aside for my mother, because she likes the kind of nettle-based soups I make like this. They're quite simple, and I'm going to kind of funk it up a little bit. So let me just put a bowl aside, just in case she doesn't like how I funk it up. And I might not like how I funk it up, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to put a bowl aside. And the funked up part is, and now this was something my housemate did to a different soup, a very different soup. It was a sweet potato and squash soup. So what she did balanced with the flavours there, but so this might not apply. But what she did is she put in some chili, some ginger, some miso paste, and radical. It was to me anyway. It's like, but some peanut butter. I think she also put in a bit of vinegar, but I think given it's got quite a lot of sorrel in there, the sharpness is already there. So we'll see what this is like. Version 2. It's also delicious. It's very different. It just has extra depth and body to it, so great. I'm just going to serve it up. Final bit of garnish. So the soup was enjoyed by everyone. It was pretty orgasmic, I would say. So I thought what would be kind of fun is what I often do this time of year, or any time of year, to be honest. I kind of look back to what I've done on this day and this week in previous years. And I partly do that to see, how the seasons are. If the plants are growing at the same stage as they were last year, but also just to remember the things that I was kind of working with. So I thought you just kind of might enjoy this. It's kind of a snapshot of other kind of possibilities, foraging possibilities this time of year, but I guess also just a snapshot of a forager's life, what I get up to. So I've only got kind of photos going back to 2013. Got the rest on a hard drive at home, but let's kind of have a look at what's there, and maybe it will give you some further ideas for working with wild foods at this time of year. Have a look at this. So this is a selection of some random things from this time of year. First up, lilac. Absolutely glorious at the moment, and yeah, so fragrant and yeah, aromatic, wonderful. And probably the simplest thing you could do is just infuse them in spring water, tap water, for 3-4 hours, and then just pour and enjoy. My sister says it's like, well, it's like what the flower fairies would drink. So yeah, there's more complicated things you can do, and I mentioned some of these in a previous video, but I would say this is the simplest and one of the most beautiful. I mean, look at that. Yep, I know, gross, hands going in there. Just don't tell anyone. I won't. Individual portions of nettle soup, just cooling, waiting to freeze. It's a really good way of storing soup in portions like that. Ash keys, I pick a lot at this time of year for pickling. And last couple of years, going back quite a long time, I've been making wild garlic leaf curd, which is extracting the protein. So basically you liquidize the leaves with water, break open the cells, and then squeeze it through a bag, and then boil the liquid. The protein coagulates, then you kind of let it settle and siphon it off. This is kind of interesting because it solves a mystery. In a previous video I was on pickling, I made my own vinegar out of wild garlic leaf juice, and I couldn't remember where on earth it had come from, but this is clearly the answer. So the residue left here, which is the leaf curd, which I know 60-70% protein, just a final little bit of draining and a filter here. Really intense flavour, super strong, and colour as well. So it kind of lends itself to kind of what's just coming up in the next picture, which was going over to visit my friend Lucia. She's got her own wild food business, wild kitchen, and we were making pasta. We were using this and reindeer moss actually powder for an event which sadly never happened at the Good Shed in Canterbury because I did my back in, so I couldn't even bend down to pick up a dandelion. This surprises me. I mean, I get these at any time of the year, but jelly year, I got them this time. Liquidizing them, squeezing out the gel, drying them, dehydrating them, really thin tissue paper, thin wafers, delicious. Fascinating fungi I discovered, bog beacon. It's not an edible one, but I've found it this year as well. Fascinating. Beautiful. What is edible and is great at this time of year is chicken of the woods. Look at this one I found at this time. Another fungi that I found. Well, this was with Kelly Brook getting old, actually, dryad saddle to make paper with. That's what was going on there. But she made me look 20 years younger by putting an amazing filter on that. So young ones look like this, and they are really nice and tender to eat. Gorgeous. Now here, looks like I've got a baguette. It really does. But I found a fallen over bit of birch, still very much fresh. So I got the inner bark, which is an amazing ingredient. Very bitter. Dried it, powdered it, and then kind of filtered it for breads, biscuits, pastries. In small quantities can be amazing. So yeah, I experimented a lot around this time of year and in the winter of getting balsam fir resin, a great ingredient. The syringes was a interesting idea. It didn't work so well. I mean, it worked, but this was better. Cocktails and other things. Japanese knotweed, this is the time. So I tried to lacto ferment it, but this is it. It just went mushy. Made a great paste, but didn't hold up firm. This was fascinating as an experiment in using walnut catkins. Well, it wasn't, because I shoved it in the freezer and they're still there. Been there for years. This is Sitka spruce catkins, not used those yet. Experiment with conker leaves, don't even go there. And birch flowers, which I've not used before, but they worked all out as a tea. And here we are, we have one of my favourite things this time of year is hawthorn. So the pickled buds there on the right and elder hot pickled on the left. Also work a lot with seaweed from spring all the way through the summer and actually winter as well. And I like to candy it and kind of make shapes and things. Particularly, I really like heart shapes. I'll make some heart-shaped ones there. And it's in a dehydrator. And these are them when they're dried. Working with seaweeds as well, I like to make nori sheets. And this is made out of dulse. And candied leaves, that's bramble, candied with blackberry, that's fig, candied with fig syrup. And I like to collect a lot of pine pollen at this time of year from these male catkins here. Then dry it, sieve it, and use it in cakes particularly. That's me digging some burdock root. You've got to have a burdock suit to get your burdock root. And finally, boom! This is the climax. I saw God deep frying seaweed. And amazingly, I was still alive at the end of it. So that's a snapshot of things I do at this time of year. See you next time.